Welcome to KC Grid Talk. It's not KC Tuesday, it is KC Wednesday, episode number 18 of Grid Talk here. We've got a lot to cover tonight. My name is Emory Lida, joined as always here. I've got my excellent co-host with me again, Alexander Searle. Alex, back again for another national weekend this time. Haven't been doing too much racing in Canada the last week or two, but what's everything been up to these days?
Just hanging out. I mean, we've obviously had a pretty eventful summer. I'd say, the KC team as a whole. I haven't been to all of them so far. I'll be at most of the rest this summer. Like you said, been traveling, been coaching when I haven't been working with Car Chasers. So it's been a fun couple of weeks here, first 2 months of the summer. But now we're into like that home stretch of lots of races so far in the summer. Still a bunch to go before we get a nice little summer break. But on my end, I've been chilling, been enjoying, a bit of free time.
One could say you haven't been driving too much.
Yeah, sadly.
And then on the other end the other side of things, we have Kaleb Vieska, a guy who has been driving a lot out in the boonies of Ohio the last couple of weeks. I
Yeah.
mean, you're back again for another weekend at a cool racetrack, Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati. I mean, you're actually already there on site setting things up. How's it going so far, Caleb?
Yeah, well, I've been here for 2 weeks already. I was here last weekend for the club race, working a little bit behind the scenes, and then spent a couple of days off in Mansfield, Ohio, with our very own Kyle Cuthbertson, our creative director. And yeah, today we just got back to MCC. We're already setting up. Myself and some of the guys on the crew already have all the cameras built out, all the kind of our base stream built out already, and then tomorrow we go in and do all the hardwiring and all the antenna stuff. But it's been a good day so far, and we're out here actually as Finnegan Bayliff walking through the clubhouse here where I'm set up here at the Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati. So not too bad. Nice little setup that they offer. The facilities here are always great.
Yeah, one of these days we'll have Finn on the podcast. That's for a later date, unless he wants to join in right now. But in the meantime, getting set to go for round number 3 of the Stars Championship Series, the Clash at the Club. Again, we've seen 2 great races for Stars already. A lot of good racing going on in the pro categories, and in general, again, very good. We've got upwards of 250 entries again this weekend. Should be set for a lot. But before we get into this weekend, our own setting the grid segment a little bit different this week because in the last week we mentioned Danny Formal moving to the Sodi Kart Racing USA team. On the other side of that, though, Tahlon Yockel going from Sodi to a privateer effort, still on a Sodi kart, just not with the team effort, but of course with a lot of testing, a lot of knowledge of shifter karting and the chassis in general. Tahlon, of course, this is a new sticker kit, KC Grid Talk exclusive here. The first pictures of this exact kit that they'll be running for this weekend. And what's one better thing than bringing the sticker kit and showing that on the stream? Why not bring in the man himself to talk about his race weekend? So Tahlon Yockel, welcome to the show, Tahlon. It's been a while since you've been on a KC podcast, but how are things looking so far?
First of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate having, being second time out here. But I'm doing pretty good. It's been a little bit hectic getting things together and making sure I have everything together because there's a lot of stuff going around. So I'm excited for this weekend. I'm ready to try to get the points gap a little bit closer between me and AJ because I'm in second. And honestly, I thought I was like 100 points away from him, but I think it's like 83 or something. So going to be working hard.
Yeah, and so, I mean, first off, let's talk about the season to this point. I mean, you've had 2 rounds. I'd say Charlotte kind of looked like it was a little bit more of a struggle for you guys. You didn't really break out of the midfield, so to speak, but then you come to Newcastle, a track that you've had a good amount of success with on the shifter side of things. And really, I mean, you were in the top 5, top 6 hunt pretty much all weekend long, culminating with the 4th place finish there. So, as you look ahead to this weekend now, I mean, you're like you mentioned, you're about 80 points back. How would you evaluate your season so far in trying to defend the Pro Stars Championship to this point?
Well, so the first race with Sodi was, at Stars Charlotte, and we had some growing pains for like the first 2 weekends, Charlotte and Newcastle Stars, and It was just we basically figured out that it was just the front end needed a different material part in the front to make it handle better, and that gave me like 6 tenths alone when I found that out. That was before qualifying at Newcastle. So the whole weekend at Charlotte, where we had a good go kart, like it handled well, but I felt like I was missing something. And with the lap times, if you can really carry over the lap time that I gained at Newcastle, if you could take it over to Charlotte, I would have been, near the top step or even fastest. But it was just part of that, and we got past it, and the go kart was perfect after that point, fixing that portion. But yeah, so far season's going relatively well, just a few growing pains, and I'm more motivated than ever as a privateer compared to being under the SOTI tent. Like, ain't much there isn't much that changed really. It's gonna be me and my dad. He's always been my mechanic. It's just we're not under the big tent, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, talent. I mean, first, before we get into the whole privateer thing, I mean, talk to me through as best as you can. Obviously, the kind of the decision. First, you went to Sodi this year, and now halfway through the season, you had a short stint with Sodi. Decided to go privateer remainder of the season. I mean, kind of what's your mindset? What was your kind of the deciding point to do that?
So my main deciding point was basically I didn't really want a teammate in a way. Like it's like I was trying to bring other people under the tent, but I feel like if I had Danny under the tent, we're both so competitive in a way. We wouldn't really mesh together too well, like me and AJ. So my mindset was like basically like I have nothing against anyone too much. It was just like we won't really mesh together as teammates. We're competitors against each other. He'll race me hard, I'll race him hard. We have that respect on track, but being under the tent, I just feel like it wouldn't really just mesh too well.
So you kind of just thought, instead of being teammates, you'd rather race them hard, as opposing teams almost.
And it was just in the regard of if I wanted a teammate, I'd probably like go to someone know would like help benefit me. Like I already know AJ could benefit me really well because he taught me basically everything I know about shifter racing. So I kind of looked at it as a way of like it might put more like of hindrance on like how I can move forward because I just wanted to basically be on my own path at that point. Like I said again, nothing against Sodi or Danny or anything. It's just I wanted to go my own path because I'm used to it.
That's a good point.
Very, very good point that you have there. And I mean, another question. Whenever you're on the point about AJ, right? I mean, a couple of weeks ago at the racetrack that we're going to this weekend, you qualified on the front row alongside AJ. Took the fight to him in those first couple of laps. So this weekend is a whole different story, right? You come out here to Stars and a much different competition than what it was last year, right? I mean, I want to talk about that with you, Talon, because I mean, you've seen this series grow since the start of the series where you grew up racing. You were a champion last year, and now this year, you have a lot of guys that come from overseas and a lot of different other teams that are starting to bring in their drivers here this year. So what's the big difference in the competition that you've seen from last year compared to this year?
It's definitely way more competitive this year. The points are way tighter after the second round. Everything. You got to push harder. You got to basically want it more to get a victory in Stars now. I consider Stars as a high level national event with AJ there, Jay racing. We have Billy. Josh is really fast. Vincenzo. I can keep on naming them. People keep on showing up to Stars that are really fast. And it's really great to see them grow over the span of time. They're doing a really good job.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to the team discussion, Talon, because I mean, you mentioned kind of that you've kind of run a lot of privateer efforts over the years. We were talking pre-pod about kind of back in the day running X30 a lot when it was just you and your dad, a little bit of help from Comet. Really, if I think back outside of the
Ooh.
Well, both of those guys just absolutely disappeared on us here at Talon. So it's just me and you. But I mean, I'm going to go off of what Emory was saying, right? You'd been a privateer before, right? It's not your first time being a privateer. You've done it before. So what's that like? And do you think it's any more difficult doing it this time around than what it was back in the day?
I think when I did it during X30, I wasn't as mature as a racer or like just in general mindset, everything. So during that time, I I was doing good in X30. I was able to be up front, but now being in shifter, I have way more experience under my belt, and it's my third season now in shifter. I feel like I'm able to figure out my go kart, know when something's not right, even if it's like the small details. But I'm very just super confident. Basically, I'm super ready for this weekend because I'm just excited to be back at my roots at this point.
Yeah. So sorry about the technical difficulties there, Talon.
You're
Cut
all
me
good.
off mid question, but I was gonna say, so you've worked with AJ in the past, but when you guys were first starting out karting back in 2015 or so, and then obviously with Magic once you kind of made the move to the shifter side of things. But outside of that, I think that anyone that knows you and your dad would say that you kind of have like an independent style of working together. And you kind of now that you're moving back to a privateer effort, is that just kind of something that you feel like you click better when it's just the two of you and you kind of can kind of trust your own driver feedback? Because I look at you over the years and I see probably one of the most notable privateers that we've had in the sport that's consistently run up at the front. And I mean, you could say the same thing about AJ with the Magic operation and kind of the smaller field, so to speak. So I guess my main thing is, do you think that's just something that appeals to you or your dad, or is it kind of just a coincidence that it's worked out that way?
It's definitely something we planned on doing at some point because that's how me and him work. We like to do our own thing basically. That's why he's my mechanic because he trusts himself with making sure everything's tight. I don't have any difficulties or anything. And yeah, I think me and him just click together really well as a team. And when we're in our own little bubble and we have everything we need around us resource wise, we we're we can just run just as good as if we're under a tent. Maybe if I need a little bit of coaching, then I'll admit that at some point if I don't know track. But other than that, I trust the go kart will be good, and I trust I'll have the good feedback for the settings.
All right. Well, again, I'm like Emory. Apologies for the technical difficulties. I have no idea. Emory and I both just got kicked out. I have no idea what just happened. But yeah, you talk about being a privateer. Talk about how you and your dad obviously mesh pretty well. You've been doing this for the beginning of your career, being a privateer. There's a bit of leniency that's involved in that, right? You have more freedom, I'd say, being just you and your dad. Do you think that kind of helps with you maybe wanting to run more one-off style races? I know before the show, you're kind of mentioning a few races you had your eyes on that you can kind of do as a solo. Do you think it kind of helps maybe swapping engine packages every once in a while and go and have some fun?
I mean, I'm all about having the most fun possible. So I always look at opportunities to go and do like maybe something single speed or even like rock races or something like that. But other than, yeah, I'm just here to have fun. I'm obviously here to win as well, but I wouldn't be here if I wasn't having fun. And why not maximize it? Try to do, like maybe grands or something, try to get that cash prize because I want to win, but I haven't driven a single speed in a while either. So I'd have to do some testing before I can really say anything about that. But yeah, it opens me up to do more, do just like do whatever I really want to do in single speed if I want to try that again. But on the shifter side of things, I already had my schedule set, and it didn't really hinder anything with the big change. I'm going to be at the rest of SCUSA, Vegas, and obviously the rest of Stars try to get the championship there. But yeah, it just allows me and my dad to be on our own path at this point, and we work like it's just we're tight.
Yeah.
We know what we need.
Yeah, and going back to the single speed talk, it seems like a little bit of a trend, boys, don't we think? Right? AJ running KA at the United States Pro Kart Series, as well as Alan running KA there, and then Tahlon talking about other one-off races. Tahlon, it seems like you're just kind of you're just going with the wave here. It doesn't seem like you're going. You say you go your own path, but it seems like you're going the path of your former teacher and I guess former teammate in Alan.
Yeah, he does like to do that too. I speaking of Alan, he was a big help when I was under the tent with Sodi. He helped me a lot, so I want to give a quick shout out to him. But yeah, I guess you're right in that sense. I didn't think of it like that, but yeah. Yeah, I just want to try different stuff out. Obviously, I'm dedicated to shifter fully, but it won't hurt to do like maybe 1 or 2 single speed races at this point. Like, especially if it isn't for a championship and it's for money.
Yeah, so let's say Tahlon Yockel decides for an IME Grands. Are we doing KA or X30? Or both?
Man, KA is such a dogfight. It looks so hard to win that class, but I kind of want to race against AJ and KA because I'm sure he'd run KA again. But I have all my experience in X30, so I feel like I could adapt quicker. I've driven a KA before from a friend who had that engine package around Trackhouse, but I'd probably be more leaning towards X30.
Bring back the Yamahas.
I hated the Yamahas, dude. Hurt my ears when the can fell off.
Oh man. No, but speaking about the Yamaha days back a little while back, your dad comes more from the dirt biking side of things, correct? And yeah, and I remember that kind of being a big topic of conversation between your dad and my dad when you were first starting out. Because for those that don't know, we kind of came up through WK around the same-ish time. And so my dad was always like talking about, oh, wow, like Marty's so cool. Like he's into dirt biking too, like into the whole like two-stroke, the 250, 450 stuff. But I kind of want to mention, like we were talking about the privateer talk before and kind of how you and your dad have that unique style. And I think the other side of that as well is as you've kind of gone into the shifter side of things and sort of you're kind of, to me, you're kind of one of the more unique paths where you've had kind of a side of you that ran senior early on where you were in the X30 package, and then you moved on to the KZs when it came time to run the shifter. And I kind of want to ask about how your dad's viewed all that as he's gone through the years. Like, did he ever have an influence on kind of what engine you pursued, and does he prefer the shifter versus the X30?
Oh yeah, man. So it got to a point with like X30 back then was pretty argy-bargy, and it got to a point where I'd qualify like third or something at a national, and I get taken out on lap 1 because I left a little bit too much room, go in the grass, and my whole weekend's basically ruined. And he got sick of that over time. Like, so basically, he had fun at first, and then when I got faster over time, he got more sick of the racing style. So it kind of led to, I did cars when I was 17 though. I stopped racing X30, went raced cars for a little bit, and I went back, raced X30 for like a year and a half. Then I decided I wanted to do shifters because I always wanted to race shifters since like I first started racing karts in general. And honestly, I don't regret anything. I love KZ so much. It's the most fun I've ever had in my life.
Way more fun than Yamahas.
Oh, and faster too. Definitely.
Tahlon, listen. So obviously, privateer went to Magic, went to Sodi USA. Now you're a privateer. You have no ties to really any team. You decided to stay with the Sodi kart though. I mean, what was kind of your decision behind that? Did you think you found something? You know, from Charlotte to Newcastle, you mentioned it earlier. There's a bit of a setup change that you found that picked up 6/10. I mean, do you feel really comfortable now under that chassis? Now you have a couple races under your belt.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable on the Sodi because Emory knows this. I live 10 minutes away from Trackhouse, so I'll be out there twice a week. And so I basically spend a lot of time and do a lot of laps trying to get familiar, especially with it's still relatively new of a frame for me, but I feel like I was able to figure out really quick for what it had. I don't want to say what I had wrong with it, but just what I had to like replace to make it the best possible setup for me. Now I don't think I'm gonna touch it for any race. Maybe the hubs or something, rear hubs, but other than that, I'm very comfortable. I'm gonna try to give AJ the works this weekend. I'm gonna be going in, gonna try my best.
Yeah.
What's it gonna take? What's it gonna take? Because I know in Charlotte, I'd say we were down on pace a little bit. We found it at Newcastle. What's it gonna take this weekend?
Just perfect my driving, be more consistent, and I didn't get tired in that final, but I got pretty close to getting arm pump, which was like crazy to me because I'm really conditioned for karting. Like, yeah, I know I'm all muscles over here, really skinny, but I don't really get tired because I practice so much. I'm conditioned for the heat, but that race it almost got to me. So I think I'll be better this weekend because I'll keep up on my hydration and dieting better. But other than that, I just gotta be more consistent because my lap times were good. I but it didn't help. I started in ninth place also.
Yeah, and Talon, I mean, you mentioned kind of being more consistent. I will say, the first year that you came to run this track in shifter, so 2022, I believe that was, you had a shot at the Stars Championship, and I don't think it's a stretch to say it was by far your worst weekend that you've had in a shifter. But the last two times you've been here, or I guess it'd be three times actually, but the last three times you've been here, you were quick in 2023, and then this past race that you ran for Pro Tour for the Spring Nats, you were front row. Really, honestly, had the most pace outside of Mateus and AJ over the course of the heat races into the final. So, have you learned anything about the track that's made you go quicker? Is it just something to where you've become that much better as a driver on the shifter side of things over the last year and a half?
I think it's just a mixture of both because I've dedicated myself so much to making sure like I I'm consistent anywhere I go because I know Newcastle really well, Cincinnati. I know I say pretty well, but I don't have it perfected. I but I definitely was an improvement on my driving and my racecraft from a year and a half ago, or yeah, that long ago when I was there. But this year, this year when I went in, I had more confidence as well because I knew the track better, and also I I learned all my mistakes in 2022 when, like you said, one of my worst weekends. I just learned a lot through that. What I like, what axle not to run, which was the soft one. It just wanted to turn into a piece of butter. But yeah, for SCUSA this year, I was just really confident. I knew the go kart was fast because of what I discovered at Newcastle, and I just I knew as a driver myself, I did improve a lot from the last time I was there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Talon, I'm now in this segment off with one last question. I mean, last year you won the Pro Stars Championship. 2022, you were in the fight all the way through the season. 2024 looks like you have another fight on your hands. When you look back 6 months from now, at the end of the year, no matter what races it's been, whatever, what would a successful end of the season look like for Tahlon Yockel? Would there be in Stars, SCUSA, IME Grands, Trackhouse testing, whatever? What are some of your goals for the year, and what will make it a successful year?
For Stars, I definitely want to try to defend my championship, try to have the number one plate again. But AJ's definitely going to not give that up. He's going to give me a tough fight for that. For SCUSA, I think I'm seventh in the points because I didn't have a good race at Orlando. But I want to try to get like top five in the points because that would be an improvement from last year, which was I forget where I finished top 10 in the points for SCUSA. But other than that, I want to have the same exact style Vegas. I was running really good at Vegas through all the heats until the final when me and Denner had a little collision in turn one. But I just want to finish the main this year in Vegas. But yeah, I'm just trying to run at the front at every race I go to at this point.
Gotcha. Well, so far it's been a pretty good start to the year in that sense. Tahlon Yockel, again, thank you for joining us. Anyone else that you'd like to shout out before you go on?
Uh, Obviously, shout out to my dad. Sacrifices a lot of time to go and be my mechanic, and he could be working, but he comes out with me and sweats like a pig, like me, out in this heat. Man, the heat's been crazy this year, but
It's
uh,
insane.
Sony competition, I'm still gonna be with them, so they provide me with the best power possible. Alessio Rossi, my engine guy, he's phenomenal. I want to thank him endlessly, him and Flavio Sani. And yeah, that's basically it as a privateer at this point. Like, don't got much to say now, huh?
Small team, but mighty results. Tahlon Yockel, thank you so much for joining the show, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, so that's Tahlon. Tahlon Yockel, very intriguing storyline to follow to start into this upcoming weekend. His first weekend back as a privateer on the shifter side of things, but of course, lots to come later on in the show. We're going to have Shawn Bayliff joining us, the head man of Terrain Karting Group, the owner of the Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati. I think sitting not too far from Kaleb Vieska at this point. So,
Yeah. Couple of
we've
rooms
already
over. Couple of rooms
yeah,
over.
we've already got one guy in the clubhouse. We'll have two here in a minute. But first, we'll have a word from our partners.
Colin, I need a new 219 chain. I need a 77 toothbrush sprocket. I need some more chain lube, and I need it probably as soon as like tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, are you even listening? Like, we need this to run this weekend.
Want anything else?
What do you mean?
I already got it in the Karting Acceleration Kart Racing's online store, bro. All orders over $200 get free shipping.
Oh, throw in a set of tires.
Done.
Everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free on orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Shop AKR.com.
Well, welcome back to episode number 18 of KC Grid Talk, powered by shopakr.com. You know, earlier in the show, I mentioned that we haven't had Finn on the podcast as of yet. It's been a little while, and we're certainly going to have him on at some point, hopefully in the future. But I never said that we weren't going to have a Bayliff on tonight, because Shawn Bayliff has joined us on this show. Shawn, how are you doing?
Yeah, real good. Hopefully my mic and everything's working for you guys.
Sounds
Pretty good.
perfect, Shawn.
Perfect.
Better
Good.
than Alex did at the start of the show. Oh, man.
All right.
Yeah, so Shawn, I mean, first off, you know, second big national weekend of the year coming to MCC. You know, you've got upwards of 250 entries this weekend, I believe. I mean, you know, you get set for another one of these. It feels like kind of yet another huge landmark for the operation. But as you head into this weekend, I mean, how are you feeling about this weekend as a whole and how your year's been up to this point?
This year's been crazy. No, we're really starting to get the swing of things. This is, I think, our fourth season of running the Pro-Am series here. So we just had a successful weekend this past weekend with the Freedom Fest that we just had. So, no, I think it's good. SCUSA, I thought, was a really good success. I know there was some controversy over the potential that turn one was a little dangerous. We had never had that kind of issue before, and really 11 of the hits that had happened, if 6 of them were from one driver and 3 were from another. So 9 of the 11 were from 2 drivers. So I think it was a little bit of a respect issue of turn one, and I think the coaches are coaching turn one a little bit too hard, because you really can't do it flat out. I know they claim you can, but it's a tough corner. So it's a lot like Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You got to really respect that corner. It's fairly same shape, and you know, if you get in too deep and then you chicken out of it, it's not a good thing. So, but in general, I think we're in pretty good shape for coming up to stars. Rig parking's happened, and we're looking pretty good.
Yeah, you talk about the SCUSA race. Let's talk about MCC as a whole. I mean, I got to drive it fairly, early on in its creation, and then now with the expansion as well, you've pretty much brought on all the national series. Talk about the growth of your racetrack and what that kind of means to you.
Yeah, it was, when I took over management of the club in October of 13, the track was finished I guess it was started in fall 06 and opened officially in 07. It was I had 27 bosses at the time. It was kind of the dream of them just to have a place to go play to keep their wives from getting them in trouble by going off to Porsche races all the time. So once they got into it and realized that, oh man, we better figure out a way to pay for it. So they struggled for a few years, and then we came over and flipped it. But I never imagined that I would actually own it. Had dreams of what we could do with it and had plans. I'm always a planner of things. So if you want to do something, you got to plan for it first, and then it'll work out in the end if you want it to. So I had a lot of plans for it, and it just happened that one of my members, Greg Heeman, him and I were working on some stuff in the back. He's got a big industrial plumbing company, and he was fixing some stuff for us. And it first started saying, let's tear that big bank corner down, and then it turned into a conversation, and one of his dreams was to own a motorsports complex. So it's kind of a perfect fit. Some old boy in Florence, Kentucky at a racetrack told him the secret to making a racetrack work is have someone that knows racing, and then have someone that knows construction and how to do things. So it's been a perfect friendship and marriage, I guess you want to call it, but definitely Greg and I have grown to become friends, and he definitely knows the construction side and learning more and more about the racing side. I kind of bailed out on the I don't want to say bailed out. I just had too much time, but he took over the reins of managing our MX5 program, and he's we won the championship in that. So no, it's been a great partnership here. We still have more things to do. It's hard to. I was just noticed this is our third season on the track. It's, we're starting to patch things up, and it's kind of a little bit depressing. We got virgin asphalt, and then now you got to start patching things up. So we got to plan on doing some stuff in the future for keeping the pavement where it needs to be, and keeping the racing great is most importantly for us. So we expanded the tower. That's really great. Although we roasted the poor U.S. or SCUSA officials there because the air conditioning didn't work. So we got a new air conditioner in this last week, and so it was real comfortable for us during the pro-am. So it should be good.
What's the behind? Sorry about that, Kaleb. I just want to one more thing here.
You're good. Go ahead.
What's the behind the scenes look like on running a racetrack? We don't get to talk to many track owners, and I know it's very difficult to do it. You make it sound a lot easier than it is, but I mean, what's kind of like a behind the scenes day of Shawn Bayliff? What's going through your head at all times?
That I haven't really thought about it because I wear basically two hats. Running the race team and then running the track as well. So it's multifaceted for sure. My day, the one thing I can say is I can't plan anything during the day. So I never know what's going to walk through the door. So that's probably the most difficult part of it is, I have an idea of what I want to do when I wake up in the morning, and at about 9:05, that goes out the window. So, there's a lot of maintenance to running a racetrack. People don't realize that. And then there's a lot of, you have to talk to a lot of people doing this, especially becoming a promoter. It wasn't so bad when we were just a private club and we didn't host races and we didn't, invite other series to come in and race. So it's nonstop. So there's, only so many hours in the day. I get up at about 4:30, hit the office till about 8 o'clock, and then I run home, take a shower real quick, and then set the day up. Because the only time I can get any kind of paperwork done or anything is that early in the morning or late at night. Because during the day, I'm not sure what's going to happen, especially between the two companies.
And it's funny that you say run home, because your house is actually a couple of steps away from your actual office here at the clubhouse where we are. But I mean, what's that like, right? You're a guy that even on race weekends, you wake up at 4:30, you're out here blowing the racetrack and keeping everything clean. And from what I have seen, especially on race weekends, even last weekend when I was here for the club race, a lot of customers under the tent. It's going to be the same this weekend, but you operate more as a team owner on big national race weekends. How important is it for you to have trust in either both your boys, Gavin and Finn, and then some of the mechanics as well, or team managers like Jarrett, for example, who's very involved in the team as well?
Yeah, it's always down to the people. When I'm a team owner here at the racetrack, and I'm just a track owner. I don't pay much attention to the race team. Yeah, of course I watch it a little bit, but I'm hands off. Without Jarrett and Finn and Gavin, it would be hard to do. Jarrett's really instrumental in everything that we do here. He can drive the truck. He's a backup. He's really my right hand man, and then Finn and Gavin for sure. They do so much. It's almost sometimes not fair to them because they get pulled in so many directions under the tent that they don't truly get a focus on what they should be doing. I'm a bit of I learned how to do everything at a young age as far as tuning and such on karts. My dad had me always working on prepping the karts and everything. So they're full-fledged on prepping everyone's karts and doing all those types of things. So usually it's their karts last to get put together and that. So sometimes it's not quite fair, but in the long run, it's made them better, and we're starting to see some of the the fruits of those labors pay off here. They could have I could have put mechanics and tuners on them earlier in their life, and they might have been better or quickly better, but we also didn't have the funds to do it. So you got to do it, and then most importantly, Michelle, she puts up with it. She takes care of the guys, and then having a strong partner with Greg and his kid under the tent, I know that if there's any issues, that's not a problem. But on a race weekend like this, I'm more of a track owner. I want to make sure that the atmosphere is good for everyone, the place is clean, the track is in proper condition, and that we have a first-class facility.
Yeah, for sure. And sorry, Emory, but going back to your past, right? You were talking about your dad who'd wrench for you back in the day. I mean, I'm sitting here in the clubhouse, about 16 helmets sit here from your long racing career. So why don't you walk us through it a little bit, right? We talked about it last week. I really wanted to deep dive into the career of Shawn Bayliff, because you've done almost everything. You've raced some of the other vintage karts, because you have a vintage race here a couple of times a year, if I'm not mistaken, and then a little bit of car stuff for you as well over your career. So if you don't mind taking us through it.
Yeah. I started racing karts in '79 at Cridersville Speedway on a dirt track. And then that kind of sprung into doing the street race circuit and then the OVK stuff at Portland, Indiana, Camden, and Eaton, Ohio. So my dream ever since I can remember was to race the Indy 500. So I came really close to that twice. But, I always jokingly said I want to be the first 5-time winner. That still hadn't happened yet, but I raced karts. Was very successful in karting. I think history, if you look back, I don't think they had it then, but I think I won the very first SCUSA race in Plymouth, Indiana, in a street race. So I had a lot of shifter experience. I helped Margay develop their first shifter kart. Myself and Anthony Lazar were the first 2 shifter drivers that they had. Some of those pictures are in the back of the shop of those karts. But went up the proverbial racing ladder. I was a big sprint car fan too. So I think in '94 was my last year in karting. '93 might have been my last full year in karting. But I ran midgets in full-size sprint cars. My first sprint car race was a World Outlaw race in Findlay, Ohio. So that was pretty wild. But went up the ladder. I wanted to go on the full World Outlaw tour, but a guy that was helping me that wanted to be my car owner, he decided that he didn't like dirt car racing. So he said, "You're going to do something in the formula ranks to achieve your dream," and that. So I was all signed up for Skip Barber. Went and did Skip Barber, did really well, beat all the teachers and such at Sebring. Went to Homestead, and we had a big meeting. So I had money to do the Barber Dodge Pro Series, but they asked me to just to hold off because they had a young driver that they were going to groom to be the champion. I wasn't old at the time either, but the guy that they said to wait for was Juan Pablo Montoya. So they said, "Why don't you go into our feeder series, just run our club stuff," or whatever they called it then, their school car series, and let let Montoya do the Barber Dodge Pro Series that year. My guy got kind of upset. He didn't want to necessarily do that, so we went Formula Atlantic racing. So I spent a couple years. We bought a Formula Atlantic car, and my dad was like, "What are you going to do with that thing? How are you going to work on that?" And so I said, "I don't know. I'll figure it out." So I learned how to work on race cars at that point because I'd already taken care of my sprint cars and did that all out of it, myself. And during the week, we'd run in the sprint cars. We'd run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights every week during the summer. So we'd run, I think we'd run Attica on Wednesday, Fremont on Thursday, Lima Land on Friday, and we go to Eldora on Saturday, and then run Millstream in Findlay on Sunday. So we raced a lot, knew how to work on stuff, and I put myself through karting by building the bodywork stuff for go-karts. So you'll see some of these vintage karts now that have that stuff on them. So in fact, I got a call yesterday about if I still made the stuff, but so it went up the proverbial ladder, did real good in Formula Atlantic, got the opportunity to do some IndyCar testing, had the shot. So I was entered in the 97 Indy 500. The engines couldn't come in or didn't show up until the last day I could take my rookie test. So Kerry Agajanian put his arm around me and said, "Man, you're gonna make it at some point, but you're not this year." So it was a pretty big bumming situation there in 97. But we put Mark Dismore in the car. He had a pretty successful run. I went back running Formula Atlantic in 97, and then 98, I put another deal together for the 500. They had changed the rules to where you had to do a rookie test outside of the speedway, and then you would get to do the test at the speedway then. So got halfway through my rookie test at Phoenix. Al Unser Jr. and Johnny Rutherford were the observers of that. And I was pretty good, but the car was diabolical. So I went to those guys and said, "Hey, man, if I do the next phase of this, I know I'm going to crash this car." And it turns out, Phoenix is probably the hardest IndyCar oval to run at. And why they chose to do my rookie test there, it turns out that J.J. Yaley and David Steele had done a bunch of testing prior to that. So that was my first time in the IndyCar, was at Phoenix. And the car was just terrible. And I said, "I'm going to wreck this car if I go any faster." And they said, "Well, in our eyes, you passed the test because you hadn't wrecked it yet." So, but I still had to get 2 more phases of it done. I pulled out of that. We had an issue come up. The owners of the deal, they bought the team, and we had the opportunity to go get the remaining part of the rookie test done at Atlanta Motor Speedway. It rained, and if it wouldn't have rained, I would have finished my test there, and then I'd have been to the Speedway on Tuesday getting my rookie orientation done. So since that didn't happen, we put we put Danny Ungaius in the car, and then Danny was going to be my coach the rest of the that 98 season. So Danny ends up doing his normal thing and wrecks it at the Speedway. And so I spent the night at Methodist Hospital with him and Dr. Terry Trammell, and that they fixed him up. But we put John Paul Jr. in the car. This was for Dale Pelfrey. Dale helped me out. I did a lot of his brake testing at Enginetics, which turned into MCP brakes that everyone knows now. We helped develop that brake system that is still on those karts today. But so we put John Paul Jr. in the car and damn near won. We led like 71 laps. I was spotting for him outside of turn 1, and I was seriously, it was the year Cheever won. We had a lap lead on Cheever, and John Paul Jr. comes in the pits, and he's so excited. He leaves it in 6th gear when he goes to leave, and he fried the clutch. So I'm setting up in the spotter stand wondering where the heck is he, because a minute is an eternity when you're waiting for someone, and it was probably not even a minute. But so we ended up finished. I don't know where we ended up finishing, but again, I probably should have hung out, and I went back for an Atlantic racing, and then Price Cobb. Price won the 91 Le Mans driving for Jaguar. He hired me. I replaced Roberto Guerrero in his team. we started testing with them, and then they lost their funding, and Michelle and I tried to help them get sponsors for 2 years. So I kept racing just odds and ends, trucks, and all kinds of different stuff in the meantime. But he closed up shop, and I was back to the drawing board as far as racing career goes. And Price calls me up and said, "Hey, I got you under contract. You're going to move to Virginia. You're going to run our shop because I know you know how to work on things." And so I moved to Virginia. I was their house driver in sports cars. We won the 6 Hours of Watkins Glen, led a lot of the 24 Hours of Daytona in various cars, Porsches and P2 cars, but should have won the championship in 2003, but I got stuck in the Daytona prototype for one race instead of that. So my 2 co-drivers won the championship in the Rolex, and I got second. So I didn't get a Rolex, but I did all the work to get them the championship. So, but we had a ton of fun. I got kind of tired of being the house driver and knowing that, you know, when you're the house driver, you end up having to get stuck with the I guess what people call them, the businessmen drivers. So I wanted
gentleman
to
drivers.
Yeah, the gentleman drivers. Yeah, that's the word for it. So I didn't, you know, you go out and get in the lead, and then you knew when you got back in the car, you're going to be 2-3 laps down. And that just kind of wore on me. So, and Finn and Gavin were born there just outside of VIR. So my family was up here. There was an opportunity to do some work in my hometown in Lima. So we moved the kids and us back to Lima. I was still driving for the team, but we moved up and was trying to start our own sports car team. So we basically got that going, and the economy took a tank. And I had a couple guys that came into my office and said, we heard you used to be into go-karting. They said, if we buy you a go-kart and get us to, would you take us and teach us how to race go-karts? And I said, well, it's been, you know, that time had been almost, what would have been 20 years since I'd done it. But I called Keith Reber at Margay and said, hey, I need a couple carts. What's all this karting stuff about this day? And holy moly, had it changed. You know, they're telling me they got all these axles and all this stuff. The axles that I ran were 1.25 inches, and you know, this stuff's all 50 millimeter now. And you know, I was you know, karting is so unusual when you've been in cars forever, because about half of the stuff works and half of the stuff is backwards. So it can get pretty complicated. I think karting's one of the toughest things to do as far as tuning and competing, just because everyone is good at it. Or there's 20 guys that can win a go-kart race, where there's maybe 2 or 3 in a car race that truly have a legitimate shot, and then the time spread. So I probably just bored you to death on this, but that's a little bit of the history.
Yeah. So Shawn, I mean, first off, that's an awesome rundown of everything. And I think for those that don't know, I mean, Shawn, you have had so much depth. I think you could probably stand around for even more time talking about all of that. But I think as you get more towards the team owner stage and also the MCC phase, I mean, you mentioned kind of started out in the late 2000s into 2013 was when I believe you had full ownership, and the TKG team, so to speak. You know, you guys kind of started, I don't want to say like at your roots in a way, but sort of more along the lines of the OVKA races, the KRA races. And, you know, it's kind of been a buildup over the years. You know, I can remember back in 2016, 2017 or so is when you started to really sort of round into running more of the national stuff, starting with WK, ultimately going into USPKS within a year or two later. So, I mean, I guess first off, how's that journey been like building the team, the Trinity Karting Group team, in almost in conjunction with MCC, but in its own community at the same time? And then also, on a more personal level, I mean, at this point, Gavin and Finn, I mean, basically half of their life, more so in Gavin's case, has been sort of along the lines of developing at the same time in the team. And how special is that been to kind of see not just the team grow, but also your two sons grow, ultimately like as drivers, as team workers, as mechanics for themselves, and everything else?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there. So I actually took over management. So we were running our karting team out of Lima, Ohio, at our sports car shop initially. So we started karting back in, I guess, 2011, and we were really just showing up and teaching these guys how to drive go-karts. So we'd show up on Friday, practice all day on Saturday, and they would leave. So when we would leave, everyone said, well, why don't you stay around and race? And I told the guys that, you guys will race when you're ready, because you guys aren't ready to race yet. So, and I was still doing a lot of stuff with Ford and our carbon shop and building a lot of race car parts and stuff. So we didn't feel like we wanted to go racing yet. But so I guess it was about 11, we started getting pretty serious into the OVK scene. So we started racing then. 2013, we took over management. We were still racing OVK at Camden. 2013, we took over management. We didn't buy the facility until 2020, just after COVID had started. So it was kind of, I think you mentioned there in 2016. So 2014, I think we switched over to KRA and going to Newcastle. We were taking about 30 drivers over to that. We had done, we ended up buying our big semi in 2016, and we were taking about 30 drivers every KRA race, about 16 races. And it was kind of unusual because we got real big at the club level with that, but we would take 1 or 2 carts to like, I think we did like 4 carts. Our first like national race we did was a rock cup race, and it was the old West Palm Beach track. So that was kind of our first foray. We had maybe 4 carts and a small trailer, and we always presented ourselves pretty well. But we showed up at Daytona for WK in a semi, and it's like everyone was like, "Who the heck is this team?" So it's been a good transition. I jokingly say I wanted to be karting is, I can do it correctly. I always get pulled back into, I'm constantly getting asked to do stuff in the IMSA series and managing that. And, I think I still have a gold status as far as my driving goes on my FIA license. But so, we can do karting the way I would like to do it. My role model was all the Penske group. I always, loved going to the Speedway and seeing what Penske had done and all their shiny equipment. So, and my dad always instilled into me is, it's just as easy to make it look nice. Going fast is the hard part, but keeping it looking good is the easy part. So we always wanted to keep things looking good, and it reflects in the preparation and what you do in life. I always, thinking back when my dad said that to me, I always wanted something plain so I didn't stand out, because sometimes you're not fast, but if you look good and you're not fast, people make fun of you. So it forces you to get fast. So, but that's part of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, first off, I think the first time that I can remember seeing you guys was I went up to a random KRA race about 9 years ago. I was like, damn, for someone that's in North Carolina at the time and not heard of you guys' operation, to see a tent with 25 go-karts and as well presented as you guys are, it was kind of a culture shock. And then hearing you guys are going to Daytona was another big deal for us. But the second part of my question, that for the second time tonight, selectively decided to completely cut out on me. With all the team development and kind of seeing how much you guys have grown over the years, Gavin and Finn as well have also grown up, so to speak, as the team's grown up and as the track as well has grown up. And I guess, how special has it been for you to see their growth personally, both on the track and then also mostly off the track? And kind of what's it been like sharing this experience with them as they've kind of gone through their childhood years or now are both full-grown adults?
Yeah, it's good because, the misconception that I've always grown up with was that I had a silver spoon, and that reflects back on just the way things look. So, everyone thinks that we just have a ton of money and that they can have anything they want. Effectively, that, we put our heart and soul into this and everything we do, but we don't necessarily have the funds. Now we'll work hard as anyone else into it. So, seeing them work on their own stuff and having to learn it, and now becoming, one of the people to beat in both, shifter. Gavin's, starting to get really pretty close to knocking on the door or getting a win in this shifter category, which is really tough. And, right now Finn's leading the SCUSA Points Championship. Seeing him get a national level win at that is good. He's always been competitive. He's also been pretty stupid. Previously he does some dumb stuff, or had, in the maturity is, the maturation of that is I can see it now. We don't argue like we used to, and it's definitely hard having a dad that's done it before, because, and I still drive quite a bit. So sometimes the feedback previously was like that, it just doesn't make sense. You're making that up. So, and then that causes arguments and such. So, it's tough to be a father and a team owner in that, but, I have a huge respect for what they both do, and, seeing that come to, for fruition of what they can be competitive, wise, because KA for sure is probably the toughest class in the country right now to win, for sure. So
yeah, definitely. And it's funny that you say that Finn was, I guess, in quotes, doing some stupid stuff. Because I remember at the start of the year, I would joke around with Finn. I'm like, dude, you're 21, haven't won yet. I think it's time to retire, hang up the helmet. And then that weekend in Orlando, it goes on and wins. And then it gets super close again in Newcastle, and then wins here at y'all's home track for SCUSA again. I mean, what's that been like, right? Seeing the boys grow up and go up the ranks, and how does that make you feel, seeing them, especially Finn, cross the line at y'all's home track, taking the win a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, that was exciting for sure. I mean, he kind of said it right there in the interview that, a lot of these kids don't want to necessarily win. They don't like to work together in a sense. So it's good seeing him be smart, not put himself in those positions. The other exciting thing too, with Finn getting that win, it definitely helps in the championship hunt. Newcastle is going to be a little more stressful, but I think with, the maturity of that is, he's got a good shot at, winning that SCUSA Pro Tour stuff. He was fast at Wisconsin too. So, I mean, he's definitely been at the top of the leaderboards consistently, Gavin's had, ran the K stuff and, shine really well, but he just loves the shifter so much. So it was good to see Gavin, match Morgado's time and come up through the field at that SCUSA race for sure. But, the thing that makes me most proud is watching them work with the drivers under the tent and working with our Jonathan Kodik, our coach, and really helping the other drivers. And this weekend showed a lot of this past weekend with our Pro-Am race. Carter Thompson, Finn was coaching him, and he put on a clinic there this weekend. So it's good to see them both working. And Safet Haddock was fast under Gavin's tutelage. So it's good to see that. And we really have a great group of guys, not only those boys, and then like we mentioned, Jarrett, and we've got Pepito. He needs to learn English, but he does a great job. And we're starting to attract the good talent. Chris Lowball does a great job for us as well. So we got a lot of a core group of guys that are really instrumental in this. And we have a ton of fun too. That's really important to me, because I'm kind of a jokester, and I really, there's so many long hours in this that I tend to lighten things up a little bit and make it fun, because God knows this can be an awful sport if you look at the hours that you spend at the racetrack. And I always advise guys to never calculate how much time they actually work, because it'd be easier to go to McDonald's and make a living than it would be to this. The problem is McDonald's doesn't necessarily give you the hours.
Yeah. And
I want to just piggyback off of that real quick, because you talk about how it can be a tiring sport. We talked about it last week on the podcast, but I want to hear it from you as a team owner and a track owner. We're in sort of a really rough stretch of back-to-back-to-back races. If you're a Stars Championship driver, USPS, SCUSA, or even like a Midwesterner that does the local stuff, right? I mean, you run the racetrack that does the local scene. You've had SCUSA go through there already, and as a team owner, you've been traveling a heck of a lot. How tiring has it been, or has it been tiring for you guys in the crew?
Well, and we're probably we might be the only team that's running all three as far as a big team.
Yeah.
Because we're running all three championships, and
I think Sodi may be the other team who's also dabbling in all three as well.
Yeah, and maybe
you guys are one of the only ones.
I park their truck all the time, so they don't necessarily have to do all the driving and stuff. They had it dropped off at 11 o'clock the other night. Actually, it was about 12 o'clock, so I had to move their truck into position. So, it definitely, it wears on the guys. Jarrett doesn't get much time off. His mower broke down, and he's trying to get that thing fixed. So we gave him 2 days off this week, but. It's nice. It is tough. One advantage is that, 3 of the races are here. So at least our guys get to sleep in their own beds. Well, we tend to get the B&B next door, so they don't have to drive as far. But if we keep Kaleb off the roof and
Come on.
So, but no, in general, it is a rough stretch. We're right in the middle of it right now, because we leave next week and go to the SCUSA test at Newcastle. So we'll be testing there at Newcastle, and then the Pro Tour will be there the following week, and then we come back and to MCC, and then we'll have the test weekend here, and then the middle, I guess by the 15th of August we'll probably pass out. but then we got to start prepping for Vegas. Vegas prep starts going now. We got to start getting equipment ordered. I'm fielding calls from Italy all the time, and drivers from all over the world for that race now. The Kart Republic product has been really good for us. We made that switch back in beginning of 2021. So that's been the product's really good now. It previously it had some issues after I guess Travis Anudo was here. It kind of came on scene in a bang, and then they had some issues here in the States where it kind of took the luster out, because the KR2 was, well, now the new KR2 is good, but
the first iteration though,
that first batch was pretty bad, so it kind of soured everyone on it. So we're really trying to build the brand and get more karts in the country, and start, percentage wise, they win a lot of races against the other brand out there.
Yeah, and I mean, Shawn, kind of circling back to the other drivers that you guys had. I mean, you mentioned Fenn working with Carter Thompson. Of course, he had a dominant win on the Pro-Am side of things, and some of the other drivers as well. But I mean, when you look at your tent now, you have some races that you'll show up to where there's 20 karts under the tent and 20 different drivers. And I mean, Jonathan's done an awesome job as a driver coach. I know you guys have a lot that goes into your program, but I mean, as you've seen some of the drivers develop over the years in-house, whether it be Carter Thompson, I know has done really good in KA. Before him, obviously, you had guys like Nikita Panaris and Jonah Hanrahan who really developed as well. As you kind of see your younger drivers develop, how much pride does that give you as a team owner to know that not only do you have kind of the star drivers, so to speak, between Finn and Gavin, and then also kind of the other guys that you brought in over the years, but you also have had really a lot of success developing guys, whether it be at the club level or the regional or national level, going from kind of, let's face it, sort of struggling for pace, struggling for consistency, to finding that groove.
Yeah, it's testament to what we do developing wise. The budget of drivers in Ohio are definitely not. I think I might have lost you guys here, but maybe not.
Oh no, you're good. You're good, Shawn.
Your solo screen there.
Oh, okay. It's weird looking at myself, talking to myself there. So it's definitely a testament to what we do developing wise. We had a great year with Lucas Palacio and Travis Pettit last year. what we're seeing out of Josh Bergman this year. He's going to be a superstar for us. So that's good, but where I was going is, the kids that are homegrown here, they don't always have the budget of some of the guys that come from other areas. We're starting to see more drivers come from other areas than just our homegrown, but we didn't see Nikita or, Jonah get a national win, but they were definitely, you guys talked about them some on Car Chaser. So if you're getting talked about by you guys, it's good. So yeah, that's probably more, proud for me than having a Joe Turney come in and win, because that's to be expected. But yeah, for sure, we hope to have a new crop of drivers coming up, and that's back to the question of how tough it is. It's hard to get your grassroots program right now going with the schedule that we have. Something has to give there, because there's really not enough time for us to have a true grassroots program here and do it properly, because we're on the road so much. But I think you guys that I didn't get a chance to watch, I struggle to watch your show. I listen to it when I'm driving the semi to the track, but lately I haven't been driving the semi. So I think you guys mentioned, the amount of time on the tracks that we're getting, and the true talent rises to the top. We don't often do all those. The only series that now that we go to the week before is SCUSA, primarily because customers want to do it, and it's available. But testing at other tracks, but it's just, it adds so much to the cost of it. I wish some rules would be implemented to do it, but I'm kind of unusual because I have a team and a track, so I see both sides of it. These tracks are very expensive to keep running, so it's definitely a big boom for the tracks to have the test weekends the weekend before.
What would it take? Because I know, like you said, it's a rare opportunity we get to talk to a team owner, track owner, where okay, we cut practice the week before somehow, but all of a sudden the track loses the money. So it would probably take more money from a series to kind of say, listen, we're going to ban practice a week before. Here's a little bit of extra money. Do you think it's kind of the direction it would have to go?
Yeah, I've talked to some of the promoters of the series as a track owner, and some of the tracks say, well, you're going to have to pay double. Me personally, I think if you get your rental kart program good enough, then these races probably cost Andre at Orlando. He's probably losing money by hosting these races, but he loves the sport, so he does it. And I imagine GoPro there, or I guess Trackhouse now, I imagine that it's a losing endeavor for them to host, because the series don't want to pay what it really costs to do this. Some are better than the others, so it's definitely we're not in that position because our rental program isn't as good as what Orlando is in that, but the series just have to potentially cut that out. Stars is good that they only run on Friday, but it's kind of borderline if that's enough. But the weekend before is tough for sure. But when I ran WK and the Man Cup series when it was big, we had a lot more races. It was 13 races on the schedule, where now you've got 3 championships with 4 and 5 races. So it's hard to just run one championship because it's really not enough races. So you got to pick 2 or 3. So I don't know what the real answer is, but there's just enough crazy customers that want to do it. So it's hard to not do it. And the teams that do it tend to get the customers. So if one team says, hey, I did that last year. I didn't run SCUSA just because I had to cut, a team out. I ended up going to them, but on a much smaller level. But you lose customers if you don't do what they want to do. So ultimately, the customers drive the sport. But it's definitely getting expensive for the customers, or at least for the grassroots guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
SCUSA, we were just parking trucks. So there's definitely a lot more of the grassroots type racers at the stars level here.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
very good point.
yeah, so I mean, Shawn, we've just talked a lot there about the grassroots side of things. I mean, we've talked extensively about your own racing and kind of your own ventures. You're kind of, I would say, one of the very few people in the sport that's kind of worn pretty much every hat there is to wear. You know, you've been on the management side, you understand the mechanic side of it pretty well. You've driven, you've owned a track, you've been kind of like a manager of a track, you've been the manager of a team, so on and so forth. But as you look at the sport of karting 5, 10 years down the line and you see kind of what we're at right now versus where your ideal karting world will be, what's the most important thing that you think the karting community in the US in particular has to nail in the next few years to improve the sport?
First off, you guys have changed the sport of karting in the U.S. dramatically. I mean, that it's a game changer now. Where I think that you guys you're doing it the right way. You guys focus a lot on the personalities of the sport, and if we can grow the personalities of the sport, you're never going to have an NFL or Formula One budget in karting, and maybe not even Supercross. But I think it needs to go more on the Supercross model. I'm probably on the minority of that to think that can work, but the racing is so good. I used to write articles for eKarting News about back in a long time ago, and the problem with karting is there was no advertising on the karting. So we're trying, everything's so OTK based, or you got a Lando Norris team, or you got a whatever. I don't know why the sport couldn't be XYZ company team, where the whole team is sponsored, like Monster Energy Motocross team, or a GoPro team, instead of the manufacturers that are driving the advertising on the carts. We were doing that with TKG for a while. We were trying to brand our own team, and it worked well, but we also recognized we need to brand this past year with our whole rebranding is we need to get the KR brand bigger in the US so we can sell more carts and attract more people. And so I don't know. I think we need a unified sport a little bit more. Having a championship that, it's kind of reminds me of when I got into the IndyCar thing, when the IRL and kart war was happening. It's not good for the sport to have, just the division that we have in it right now. And there's a lot of other ideas. And, if someone doesn't like it, they get mad and they create their own series. It's really easy to create a series, but, everyone's doing it right. I like the personalities involved on all three of the series. But if we get too many, it's hard too. So it's confusing is probably the more thing. Karting is a very confusing sport to get into. I spend half my time on new people that walk into the door trying to explain what karting is, and karting in the U.S. is extremely complicated. Because there's 6 different motor packages, and you can do 206 or you can do that. So it really needs to get streamlined a little bit better to have true growth. I don't know that it'll ever get that way, but you guys are really driving the sport as far as what it can get to. If we can keep kids in it longer, I think Kaleb, said you're an old man at 21. I don't think I really started doing really good in karts until I was 21. I didn't get my first car opportunity till I was 25, I think. So 24, 23, 24. So 23 is by no means an old man in racing.
Yeah.
That's the shame of the sport. That I see some kids that raced for us previously that, if things don't go well with them, they're going to be washed up in cars before they get 18. And that shouldn't be that way. The pendulum needs to swing from this youth movement. I can't find myself being a race fan of a 15, 16-year-old driver in a NASCAR car or an Indy car. Maybe I'm an old curmudgeon saying that, but I think this karting sport doesn't need to rush people out of it as quick as they had. I believed in a ladder system in the Kart to Cars program, but I don't believe it has to happen, as quick as it does. It seems like the cycle is you run until you go right before you go to college, and then you're out of the sport. Well, I don't think it should be like that. So as long as you guys are still, I think you guys are creating the personalities that make kids want to stay in the sport. So if we can continue to do that, I think the sport will continue to grow, and we'll have a true pro show. And I kind of envision, personally, I envision Trinity Karting fielding two pro karts in the pro show, where those kids are, or drivers are making money driving for TKG. Now the feeder series, and then if I have it, Speed has it, Mike Rawlison has it. If all the, PSL, if all the teams, I don't know if it's a charter system or something where we field two teams and, we bring up an internal farm system to be those pro drivers. We can still make the money from the customers, but they have a way of trying to become our pro drivers. And, it would be great racing. You have two cars on grid that are TKG karts and whatever. I think it could draw the advertising dollars, because advertising what drives it. Now that we have TV with you guys, we're looking at different avenues of going out of the box of trying to have I'm going to just say, whatever brand of kart, and we'll brand the whole semi in that. And, we'll have a feeder series, and we start going after, a milk company or something that the kids like. And it can be successful, but people just have to believe in it. And, there's a lot of people that don't believe in it, that are old school in the sport, that hold it back from that aspect.
I hope everybody who's watching this listened to what Shawn just said. I think we share the same, all four of us here and everyone at Kart Chaser. We all share the same vision as you. And it's one of those things where you bring up a lot of interesting points. You bring up drivers moving to cars really early, right? And there's some drivers. Yep. There's honestly a lot of drivers who've done it and been successful. I can name a lot that at 18, 19 are out of cars and now are going back to karts. And it's hard to go back to cars again once you've done that transition. So I love all the points you make. I want to touch on a few. I think you talk about how there needs to be kind of a collective, maybe higher up, F1 style series in karting where it's becomes a little bit easier to follow than I'd say 3 or 4 national level series that are all about the same tier, and all of a sudden you force all the teams to have to go to 15 races in the span of a couple of months. And the other point I want to touch on a little bit is what it takes to retain those younger drivers. If I'm watching, a couple, whatever it was now, 8 years ago, Max Verstappen at 18 going to F1, why don't I want to do that, right? Why wouldn't I want to do that? It's a bad example probably with Max because he had a lot of help to get there, but I think there's a lot of young kids, a lot of series now that are expanding into 4 or 5 feeder series that are welcoming these young kids, enticing them to join their ranks. So I've always been on the mindset, I know we've done it a few times, where there needs to be, I think, more scholarship opportunities as a young driver to kind of say, listen, we're going to promote you from the 206 to the K to the X30, and then, whatever you want to do from there, X30, KZ. But I don't think there's enough of that right now. And so as a driver, I do understand both sides of it. I do understand the juniors that say, listen, why would I spend X amount of money to go race senior when I can go to cars for a similar amount of price? But then there's also the development side of things. I know a lot of shifter drivers, especially, we've talked to Danny before on the old Kart Chaser podcast, where he feels as though the shifter package is the package that every driver should go to before a car because it develops them. We see Gavin do it. So I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit on that. Is that kind of where you stand on the whole karts to cars sort of thing? Should there be more scholarships? I mean, what does it take to kind of keep the drivers? You have 2 sons. What does it take to keep them in karts?
Well, I mean, currently right now, I call bunk on that cars are cheaper. yeah, maybe one weekend is cheaper, but or you're talking,
I think
what you can afford.
relatively, the reason why everyone always says, maybe a season in X30 is the same as a car season is because you're naturally going to spend a lot more in a kart doing all these championships. So in terms of maybe 6 weekends in a car is the same price as 15 races and if you're doing PKS, SCUSA stars. That's usually what people do. Obviously, a car
Yeah,
season is
that's
much more
weekends too.
expensive. Yeah, there's a lot more
The
weekends.
seat time. If you're comparing drive time to drive time, there's no way that a
Yeah,
car.
year to year. I think same year. I think it's close.
Yeah, I mean, you could spend 150,000 in a cart and do it. I see what you're saying there, but yeah, I don't know. In motorsports in general, everyone's gotten lazy because there's always the driver that has money. You deal with that all the time. So I don't know that can ever go away just because I was kind of at the end of getting an opportunity without bringing money into racing. So the teams get lazy because if they can go look for $1 million and they have a guy that can make up the rest of their budget, they're going to choose that over the guy that can go win races. So I don't know. The answer's not. It's really hard because it's going to take a lot from everyone to believe in it. And the other issue is that you got to have enough money that you got to get through the growing pains of it. There's way too many classes in karting at the pro level, in a sense. I think it should probably start from mini up instead of the micro level. And, there's not a real good answer. If there was, we'd be doing it already. But
yeah.
So I know I was pretty vague on your answer there.
That's fine. I kind of wanted to take a couple steps back from the karts to cars transition, even talk more on the lines of karting in the U.S. to karting in Europe, because, I mean, you guys had a lot of success with Lucas Palacio last year, winning all 3 championships, and then kind of the natural progression for him was to go over and race WSK in the winter and throughout the season as well. And I guess Lucas is kind of an outlier in the sense of the success that he's had in mini in the U.S. to the state of cadets, but it feels like you're seeing a lot of drivers that are, not to say kind of jumping ship on the cadet programs in the U.S. because they're still strong numbers, but you do see, I feel like, more guys that are kind of spending half to 2/3 of their season over in Europe compared to maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I guess as you look at this as a team owner that's kind of been on both ends of it, with certainly a very strong grassroots program, a very strong national program with cadets. I mean, obviously the success you guys had last year speaks for itself. Is that something that concerns you, or is it just kind of going to be a natural product of how drivers' aspirations go?
I guess what surprises me in that, I mean, Lucas is a special talent in his own. His family is definitely, they're a great family and they're behind him. But for me, Lucas earned that. He's did everything over here. When they first came to me under the tent in Vegas, when I first met him, I wanted to keep him back in micro, and Nick was like, I want him to learn in mini. I said, well, why don't you learn to win? Because I'm a big believer in you need to learn how to win, because a lot of people can be fast. But if you don't learn how to win, then it's tough. But he learned how to win. What I'm really surprised in is seeing the kids that are going over, that are running micro now, that can't win a micro race, and they're popping over and running G3 over there, and they're getting their butt spanked over there, and they're really coming back and forth from what I see, and they're not doing. Once they went there, they're coming back and they're not doing very good over here anymore. So it's really tough. Rocco runs on our team. He's having success over there as well. He was up front. But you definitely got to learn how to win. So I'm not hugely concerned with it because, after talking with Nick Palacio and that, it's a grind. He said these kids, their schedule over there is they race, they're at the track from Wednesday to Monday. They get Tuesday off and it starts all over, because when they're done on Sunday, they stay another day and test. So So it's a grind. I don't know. I think it's proven how tough it is to win in the U.S. now. I think the U.S. is starting to get a lot more respect from overseas on how fast our drivers are here. With Joe Turney's come over here and done good, but he's not killing it. I mean, he did last year for sure, but it wasn't easy for him. If you look at it, he didn't just go out and run around and do it. He had to race for it. So, I don't know. I think there's, depending on the budget you have. I mean, Josh Bergman has the aspirations to go over there, but their family's great, and they realize that he needs to learn how to win over here. So, they're basically taking advice from myself, Eric Jones, and Dino, and those guys. So, and basically they ask, when Juggy and I think he's ready, they'll probably send him over and see what it's like. But they want to do it correctly. They want to do it like Palacio did. Because if you go over there and you run in the back, it doesn't really do you any good.
Doesn't serve you much. And then I guess on the other end too, I mean, you guys have had a few guys come in from overseas, both kind of with Joe Turney, obviously on the Car Republic side, Evan Giltaire winning Supernats a couple of years ago, but more recently on the Australian influx you guys had, and Sam Dicker as well as Cooper Weil, Gamelka as well. I mean, all three of them, and just the overall sort of, I guess, uniqueness of bringing them into the tent. How's that been like from kind of an international perspective?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's probably a testament to how we did in back at Supernats with Giltaire, and we had 19 of the Australians under our tent at Vegas for that race. It's great to hear, because that's KA capital of the world over there, although we're rivaling it. But it's good to just see how they do. They definitely feel like it's pretty tough over here, because Cooper and Gabe, they're the front runners, and so is Sam Dicker. So I stay in touch with Tom Williamson quite a bit. He's the leading team over there in Australia. So it's great to see that these drivers want to come over and compete. Now, their biggest reason for coming and compete is what we touched on just a little bit ago, with that you guys are making superstars out of kart drivers. As far as, I don't know how big a superstars, I don't know what your viewership is, but you're making personalities out of these guys, and they like it. And I think that goes to the question Alexander was talking about of where do we see the sport growing in 5 years?
Yeah.
You guys are driving the ship. I'm not going to be real popular for saying this right now, but what Xander and you guys are doing in this, if you look at pro football and other major league sports, is TV drives the revenue, and it drives what people want to do. Of course, the teams and that put on the show, but what TV does is drive the sport. And I know I'm not going to be popular with some of my fellow team owners by saying that, but you guys just need to keep doing what you're doing to help grow the sport, and it'll help us as team owners. Growth is scary. Vision, seeing the future is often scary, and change for sure is scary for most. And we're seeing that right now, because everything is changing quite a bit in the U.S. as far as karting goes. And, it's a whole different ballgame than it ever has been.
I know, absolutely. Yeah. And so, Shawn, I mean, one last thing from me before we kind of wrap up this segment. I mean, obviously this weekend, back to sort of the immediate future, you have a lot of drivers under the tent. You've got Gavin running in the shifter side of things. I guess, first off, and most importantly, as a track owner, what do you view a successful weekend on the national scene that you're hosting being like? And then secondly, as a team owner, what do you think some of our viewers should look out for with the TKG team this weekend?
Oh, from the TKG. Well, I guess from the team owner side, we always want to be competitive, but the Star Series, I think they're pushing around 250 entries this weekend, so it's going to be some great racing for sure. It's going to be hot again. I don't know what the deal is with the Midwest and how hot it is. This new tire is really throwing down a lot of marbles. The track is as fast as it has ever been. So,
Yeah.
I would like to see. We go into the Stars weekends with Finnegan trying to help our drivers come up the ladder, because the Stars is the next step out of the pro-ams for our guys, and if they can compete at the Stars level, then there's a future to go up faster. So I want to see our team guys do well under that. So it would be great to see Carter carry the momentum and be running up front. But that comes with maturation as well. So I expect Finn will be pretty fast as normal when coming here, and then I'd love to see Gavin get a win in shifter for sure. He's a lone bandit as far as our shifter program goes this weekend, but the way he ran at SCUSA. But I'd really love to see Josh Bergman get a win. He's was knocking on the door there at Wisconsin, so hopefully he can get some experience in that carry over into maybe getting his first big marquee win in a mini category.
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
But
Shawn,
from the team or track side, I just want to make sure everyone's safe and we have good racing and see how it's good. Has anyone heard? I haven't heard. Is LeCue okay?
I think it was
Luke,
yeah.
yeah,
They got
he
a
was all right.
concussion,
Go
I
ahead.
believe, but otherwise good to go.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
All right.
Any other questions, or we good?
I think I'm good on my end.
I'm good.
Shawn, it was an absolute pleasure having
For
you
sure.
on, hearing everything that obviously from your career, from a team owner, track owner, to a racer, former racer yourself. So we really appreciate all the kind words and everything you do for the sport.
Now, I got one question for you, Kaleb.
Oh, my. Go ahead.
What happened in that enduro race there Saturday?
Oh, my.
Are you blaming that on Trevor, or is it?
So we were, for just a little bit of context, Shawn had speaking of the grassroots side and the rental kart program, you had a really, really cool event. 12 karts total. It was an enduro for 45 minutes. Myself and Trevor entered a team, I guess you could say, kart chaser team, and it went horribly. We qualified like second to last. Trevor spun out like 5 times. I was getting eaten on every single start, and this track isn't as easy as it looks to drive on screen. So it was really, really bad, embarrassing. But Shawn, it was a really cool event. Really cool event. And I was thinking about it whenever you brought up the rental kart program. I didn't want to bring it up because we did terrible in the race. But I got a little taste of MCC.
No, see, Kaleb, I think you should listen to your own advice that you've given me and Finn and hang up the helmet.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
time.
over, bud.
I am.
Yeah, I got to correct the record on that too. I never ever told Finn to retire.
Yeah,
that was all you.
Me.
But,
Kaleb's
but no, we want to do more of that stuff. I think our pro-am next year, we want to do more unique events. Yeah. Our Kartaween race, we're going to do that at night. We're going to probably do another enduro at night. So the more we can do to attract people into the rental side, hopefully that spins into new people. So growth of the sport starts at grassroots, and you guys coming out and filming those, I think, does some excitement for that too.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Okay. Well, sorry I bored you guys to death tonight. So
no, it
was awesome.
It was seriously amazing. Seriously, I think I gained like 5 years of wisdom in this conversation here. So we really, really appreciate having you on.
Well, again, thank you guys for what you guys do. It's pretty awesome, and Xander's vision of this. So it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, so that's Shawn Bayliff. Thanks again to Shawn and everything for an hour plus of wisdom, insights, analysis, everything else. I mean, that's everything you could think of on karting, from the grassroots that we talked about to his origins as a driver, to him as a team owner, him as a track owner, the future insights, or the future, like, I guess, progress of the sport. Like there's a gold mine to go back and think about from this episode. But I mean, as you guys get into this, I want to ask both of you kind of what your main takeaways from that were. Kaleb, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I always I have a soft spot in my heart for grassroots and everything that goes into it, because a lot of people don't know, I guess, or some aren't too familiar with my story. I've only been in karting since 2021. I started doing rental karts at Speed Sports Racing Park, and that's really how it starts. Having a good rental kart program that kind of, whenever you see either drivers on a pro track, because Speed Sports is very unique, where it has a rental kart track and a pro track. That's how it starts. Whenever you see pro karts and open wheel karts go out there on the racetrack, you start to ask questions. What is that? What is karting? How can I go faster? How can I go do that? And it's a little more attractive. So I think talking on the grassroots side, where you grow the club series to what they've done here at MCC with 100+ entries last week, and to into what it really is. So I think that the grassroots conversation was really interesting to me, as well as some of the other stuff he said. And I can go on and on and on about a lot of stuff, but one of the things that struck to my core is how invested team owners and track owners are to the grassroots side of things, because that's where the future of karting lives, and that's our kind of our motto for having our whole KC grassroots platform now as well. So it's very cool that we get to do the things that we do with the Indy Kart Challenge at Whiteland, where we have the Club Series live stream there, and then how we have a lot of other stuff going on here at MCC and a lot of other places with Atlanta, and I can go on and on about all the cool stuff that goes on and happens in grassroots. But that's really what really meant the most to me out of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing was talking about the drivers that they've developed over the years, and
Yeah.
kind of a lot of the guys that, if you're just watching the broadcast nowadays, you might have never heard of really. But
Hmm.
honestly, like seeing kind of the success stories, the guys in the development that you see from the guys that maybe don't have the budget in the state of Ohio. I mean, the guys that ran with them during KRA, the guys that sort of came up through the Trinity platform. Like for me, as someone that has kind of been, I guess, on both ends of it and run a lot of local stuff over the years, and also kind of seen some of the more like national guys, the guys that you would maybe think of first when you would think of a TKG type team, like
Yeah.
to see how much has gone on behind the scenes with Shawn's work, and the amount of work that they put into the pro am. Um, Club championship, as well as just in general the driver coaching that they've done over the years, and the amount of testing that they've done over the years. Like it's really something that's special to me, and I think that it was cool to get him to see him elaborate on that sort of discussion on this podcast. And Alex, I mean, we had a long discussion as well on the pro side of things, but from your side of tonight, what were some of the things that stood out to you, both with Shawn as well as with Tahlon?
Yeah, well, I think with Shawn, first of all, I think he, just as much as we have, I mean, he's highlighted a lot of the things that we need to kind of touch upon in the sport of karting, and he was very generous to kind of say that we've helped a lot with the sport. And I think he's right in the sense that it needed that marketing pull that it wasn't getting before. And I think I love kind of the ideas that he had of, we need drivers and teams, presented by X company, right? Rather than relying on just a customer base to go out there and fund the pro guys, basically, or vice versa. So I think the sport is heading in that direction, like Shawn has been mentioning. And it's nice to hear that a track owner, a team owner shares kind of the vision. And I know he's not alone in that sense. And so it's awesome to see that people do in the karting community do feel like the sport is heading in a better direction than it was, because it is to me, I don't want to call it a pinnacle of motorsports, but you ask any driver who's made it in racing, F1 guys, NASCAR, IndyCar, they always come back to karting to train. They always say it's the most raw form of karting. I mean, as Dan Walden said many years ago in an interview, that it is the most pure form of racing. It's go-karting. So it's awesome to see that the sport's heading that direction. And I couldn't be more, proud to be part of this company, this crew, and you guys are awesome as well. So yeah, it was great to have Shawn on. I think he touched on incredible points that I know I'm going to look back on and watch this back later.
Yeah.
So yeah, on Tahlon's side, I think for Tahlon, it was good to hear from a driver who's most people start out as a privateer, go to a big team, and that's kind of like where they stall out. I don't want to say stall out, but that's either where they continue their career or they go to cars. For Tahlon, not a lot of drivers become, start privateer, go to a big team, move to another big team, and then decide, I'm going to go back to working as just my dad and I. So it was interesting to hear his reasoning for that, and his mindset for it all. He seemed pretty confident. I mean, heading to a track that he's had success in the past. Obviously, didn't have a good run 2 years ago, but this is a track that he's grown familiar with, has had success in, and he's second in the championship now to kind of his older brother, so to speak, in terms of back in the Magic days, not too long ago, obviously with AJ. So it's gonna be cool to see those two hopefully battle it out this weekend on the racetrack. That'll be awesome to see. And as a whole, I think it's kind of a good time to bring up, I'd say, championship battles. In terms of, we have Tahlon and AJ pretty close in the championship, but not only in stars, we have USPKS, we have SCUSA as well. We have close championship battles all across the board.
Yeah, much closer than we think. I actually did a post race interview with AJ after we were here for SCUSA, and I was like, "Hey, man, like championships coming up. You're going to Newcastle, which I've been familiar with." And he was like, "Yeah, I just, U.S. championship, but it's hard to beat Morgado with two main event victories already in SCUSA, yada yada yada." What he didn't realize is that Morgado, if we look back to Orlando, didn't have the best pre-final. Here, he didn't have the best heat races. Was having to work his way up. So AJ's a lot closer than what he thinks, right? And AJ goes in to Newcastle, a track where he's so dominant at, so good at. We saw it at Stars, we see it at SCUSA every time that we go out there, and even at USPKS, he's a really hard guy to beat around Newcastle Motorsports Park. So if you look at it, those guys are going to continue to battle out, but a lot of close championship battles in OKN this weekend as well, with Terlecki leading, Ramos in second, and across all series as well. So it's definitely getting super interesting as the year continues to progress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to focus on the battles for this weekend, but if you look at OKN, it is wide open. Like, Terlecki's leading the championship off the back of two decent races, but you forget that he got a pushback bumper penalty in the race in Charlotte. So that kept him out of the top three. It kind of put him back towards the level of the other competition. And then you have Diego, who hasn't won a race, but he's been up at the front of both. Gafera and Pauly both were very competitive in both rounds, or Pauly in the first round, Gafera really in both rounds, but they've had bad heat race results in at least one of the two motos across the board. They're all within 30 points, which, to put into perspective, one bad heat in Stars puts you back 30 points. So basically, this whole points layout could be, or landscape could be, completely flipped upside its head through one moto on Saturday. That's how close it is. And then you got guys like Josh Hoach, Henry Wheeler, even Aiden Fox, not really too far out of the fray on the OKN side. And then on the Pro Star side of things, it's a bit more spread out at the top with AJ leading. But the group from second to fifth, all the way back from Yockel, Ian Quinn, Gavin Bayliff, and Michael Ritchie, only separated by 13 points from second to fifth, which is remarkably close. And that doesn't even mention round one winner Jay Irwin, who, mind you, because of his DNF in Newcastle, basically took him out of contention of the points lead for now. But with how the star system works, he'll have more chances. He'll have the opportunity to kind of rectify that going forward. So, I mean, this championship battle on both sides of the Stars Championship Series certainly far from over. And I think that it, again, speaks to the healthiness of pro American karting. I mean, we've seen in the Stars side of things, we've seen the OKN be maybe not quite as big from a number standpoint as what we would want this year, but still the competitiveness at the front of the field has been very good. The parity has been there. We thought at the start of the year in X30, Ryan Norberg would have a dominant season. And then you look at the last three races, he hasn't finished a single one of them. So you've got open points battles all across the board. The shifter landscape when Morgado runs has been a little bit more dominant for Mateus, but it hasn't been easy for him. He's had to fend off Danny. He's made a couple last corner passes over the course of the year. Certainly the one in Orlando, the last lap was incredible there. So, I mean, the battles all across the board are at a high this year, and I think it's something that we really have to look forward to over the course of the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to come. But boys, closing thoughts after this hour and 46-minute episode of episode number 18. Emory, start with you.
Okay. I guess we'll start with me. And Scott Downing said washed in reference to Kaleb's driving abilities in the Pro-Am.
Yeah, for sure.
I have something to counter that. I don't think you can be washed if you never had the ability in the first place.
True. That's very true.
In fact,
very true.
I would say, based off of Kaleb's race in Crescent, this is as good as it gets for him. He looked
Yeah.
he looked good in the Lone Star race there, but has not been his finest month since then. So, no, I mean I can't
No,
be
it's been all right.
talking. The last.
I was gonna say, do we need to pull up you going off the track at Dousman
Hey,
On his own?
by himself?
hey,
Hey.
I full on drove off the track, came back on in a KA field, put myself
Yeah.
through the Alan Isambard blocking experience, and still finished the race significantly better than Kaleb was in Pittsburgh. So,
I
you know,
did
you know,
up, so
you
yeah,
know,
you
I,
did.
y- hey, did you ever have a session above 21st the whole weekend, buddy?
I did. 17 in the session before the happy hour, but it was all right. Anyways, off the topic of our
Hey,
racing,
no, what
I
I
meant
got,
what are we excited for this weekend?
no,
There's actual good racers going on
no,
track this weekend with our OKN stars and our pro stars. So what are we
yeah,
excited for this weekend?
no, I was gonna get to that in a second, but no, I think that this weekend, I mean, again, like we mentioned, the championship battle's really, really close, and I think especially in the OKN side of things, with how dynamic that is, that's going to be exciting. It's also a strong OKN field. I think we have, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the deepest field that we've had in the year and a half that's been running on the Stars platform. I'm excited to see that continue to grow going forward, and I think the battles there will be good. The other battles on the semi-pro stuff too are going to be worth watching for sure. I mean, we saw brilliant KA racing at this track in Scusa. This is one of the tracks I think races the best when it comes to mini and micro racing and kind of tests the drive. It's a perfect blend of a drafting track and one that also tests the drivers and their ability to be consistent just because how treacherous it is off the line. So I think it's going to be a really fun track. Should be a fun racing weekend. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you two boys and the rest of the KC crew again. And yeah, another weekend of racing coming up.
Alex?
I second everything he just said. I mean, he talks about this being one of the best tracks in terms of the racing that we go to. I fully agree. I mean, I got to drive this track before the expansion of the final couple of corners. And it was already an amazing track, but now with the addition of those two corners, I think this is one of the few tracks that we go to that's unique in the sense that I'd say the first 4 or 5 corners pretty open. You could pass in a lot of those sections. Then you go to a tight section of the racetrack, few S's, a right left chicane where you see if you guys throw it in there, but you lose a lot of time. And then it opens up into a last 2 corners, sort of battle where if you defend, you give up the over under, and if you don't defend, you give up the dive bomb pass. So I think this track really blends itself to the drag race to the line that we saw at Scusa. I think we'll see that here at Stars. I think we'll see it again at USPS when you come back in a few weeks. So yeah, I'm excited for this weekend. We have a great championship battle brewing on our hands. And like you mentioned, Emory, with the OKN class, it's a class that continues to grow. More entries now than the X30 got recently. So it's positives for the OKN side of things. Obviously, it's different than what we would see in X30 with the different driver market, I'd say, for those packages. But it's positives for sure for the OKN package. And then on the KC side of things, considering you wouldn't really think that it would be that tight of a championship with how many things have gone awry for so many drivers, but that's exactly why it's been that way. And the motos matter, right? As much as people look at the feature race wins and see who finished first, second, third for the trophy, if you don't qualify well, you don't finish your heats well, you don't get good points. And so that's why I think we have such a good battle brewing in all the national series. So yeah, I'm excited. One of the best tracks that we go to, always puts on a show. So yeah.
Yeah, so with that being said, the Star Championship Series returns to on-track action this weekend at the Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati for the Clash at the Club. Myself, Emory, and Alex will all be on site. Emory will be working behind the scenes this weekend, but I know he's going to be roaming around the paddock, as well as Alex, who's going to be on camera with myself and then Xander and the rest of the Kart Chaser crew. But from all of us, a round of applause for episode 18 getting wrapped up here, and super happy for all that we've been able to do here. We had it all this episode, so we thank you guys who stuck through it, almost 2 hours, and we'll see you guys next week when we debrief the weekend that we're about to experience. Have a good night.